Good evening, everyone. My name is Manuel Calo, and I'm honored to welcome you to tonight's leadership development training hosted by El Puente Institute. Today is April 24th, 2025, and we're excited to have you join us for that evening dedicated to growth, empowerment, and sharpening the leadership skills that make a difference in our communities and organizations. Whether you're just beginning at your leadership journey or continuing to grow, this space for you. Let's lean in, learn, and lead together. A little bit of disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed during this training session are those for the presenters and participants and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or position of El Puente Institute, ANSO, or any affiliated organization. This training is for educational and informational purposes only. Without further ado, I'll present our D, host. How's it going, D?
Hi, thank you, Manuel. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Denita D. James. I am an Army veteran, and I am currently a board member with ANSO. I am the military and veterans representative, and we have with us today Dr. Leonel Peña with El Puente. And we are so graciously partnered with them. Today, he's going to provide us with a presentation and training on leadership. And we haven't done one of the trainings that El Puente has been doing for us in quite a while. And I want to say since our seminar in San Diego, I think. But it's always a great time. And if you are watching right now and you want to join the conversation, please click on the link and join our Zoom for a conversation. You can also post the questions in the comments, and we'll have somebody monitor the conversation, and we can ask the questions as well. We are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well. Dr. Leonel, the floor is yours.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you once again to ANSO for having me. I am Dr. Peña from the Bridgify Group and from El Puente Institute. El Puente Institute is a division of the Bridgify Group. We are a strategic advising firm, and we're based in El Paso, Texas. And as mentioned, we are happy to partner with ANSO. ANSO is one of our partner organizations, and we love the organization and everything that it stands for, and we're happy to be partners with them. We have an agreement that we're very happy to engage in, which is to provide trainings, and we were very happy to also do that at the symposium, as Danitza mentioned. When was that? That was it January, February? I can't remember now, but had a great time.
Yeah, it was actually in December in San
Diego. That's right. Now I'm remembering. First week of December. Yeah, I had a great time in San Diego in December, and just met a bunch of great, wonderful people there, and had a fun time, and it was wonderful to be able to present there. So, thank you to everybody for joining us. Today's session is on leadership development, and there's something here for everybody, no matter where you are in your leadership development journey. Whether you're somebody who's been in a leadership position for quite some time, or you're just starting out and just starting to climb the ladder, doesn't matter. We do have some focus areas that we're going to talk about, and like I said, something for everybody. So hopefully you walk away with something you can implement and some tools. What I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to share so that we can get into the training, into the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen here. And there we go. Okay. So as mentioned there, today's training session is leadership development. So you'll see there on the bottom right, there is a QR code. You can connect with us. That QR code is for El Puente Institute. And we would love it if you could follow us and join us. We're always putting out information and training and announcements and links, and just sharing all kinds of research and information. And so we would love it if you could follow us and just be a recipient of all of that wealth of information that we're always constantly putting out. Um, this is the rest of our group. On the right side, you see our founder and executive director, Dr. Patricia Delgado, and on the left side, you see our co-founder and director of research, Dr. Patricia Conde Brooks. They're our partners in El Puente Institute. Big thanks to them for assisting in putting this presentation together. So before we get started, just sort of a heads up, this will be a participatory training. So as was mentioned, you can log on to our training and participate. So hopefully you can do that. So we can have a back and forth and everybody can learn and grow. We do our best to balance the speaking and the listening. And remember that learning is a process. There's going to be a lot of information given here today. Doesn't mean that you're going to walk away with a million more brain cells automatically. It takes time for that learning to happen. It's a process. Growing is a process, and it takes a lot of reflection too. So just keep that in mind. So just a little bit about El Puente Institute so you know who we are and what we do and how we do it. This is how we support organizations. We help large corporate organizations understand how the Hispanic and Latino identity presents itself in the workplace, relationships and behaviors and decision making and expectations. So what that means is, normally senior executives, a high percentage of senior executives in the corporate world are not Hispanic and Latino. And so, often we go in there and help them understand the Hispanic Latino population because the population is changing very drastically and very quickly throughout the nation. And so they often have questions and they often want to update policies or implement policies, or they have questions about the sales or marketing or what have you, or it could be the workforce itself, as it says, their relationships, behaviors, thought processes, anything related to that, the psychology of the workforce. So we help them understand that. Also, cultural competence training and workshops. We do that as well. Professional development training and workshops, very much like what we're doing here today. Understanding the Hispanic and Latino cultural nuances to amplify organizational success and communication. So that could be internal communication, could be external communication, could be any kind of communication. But as we know, as Latinos, there are a multitude of cultural nuances, and those can be hindrances or those can be helpful, just depending on what they are and how they're used, and those could influence a multitude of decision-making processes or what have you. So it's key to understand those. And so we also help leaders understand those as well. And lastly, enhancing the cultural understanding of the non-Hispanic Latino workforce and the leaders to strengthen collaborative efforts. So you'll often hear of ERGs or BRGs, which are working groups within corporate America, such as business working groups or cultural working groups, Hispanic Latino working groups. So those are just sort of groups that help strengthen the communication of a particular population within the corporate organization. And so we also help those groups to better ground themselves and communicate and support themselves. So a lot of different things that we do for organizations. This is our promise to be the premier strategic advising firm that offers clients evidence-based strategies, practical knowledge, and unbiased guidance grounded in cultural competency that ensures authentic and professional success and growth for the Hispanic Latino population. So just kind of summing it all up, wrapping it all up, what that means is that we don't just kind of we don't guess at anything. All the strategies we provide are evidence-based, rooted in evidence and proven theories and proven strategies. When we whether we're working with leaders or whether we're working with employees or anybody in between, mid-level managers, whoever we're working with, all of our strategies are evidence-based. We like to say we put the unidad in comunidad, and and we believe that cultural awareness unlocks authentic potential. And that's kind of what we strive to bring out in everyone, is their authentic potential, because when that comes out, then not only can people be who they are, but their true strengths can come through and can shine through. And so we hope that by serving both sides, the organization, the leaders of the organization, as well as the employees of the organization, and getting them to be able to better meet in the middle, that we can better unlock everyone's authentic potential. And we also say that research drives quality. And as I discussed already, that's because everything that we do is research-based, evidence-based. We don't guess at anything. And growth knows no fronteras, no borders. And we believe that everybody can grow, everybody should grow, and everybody does grow. And we believe very much in assisting in that growth. So getting to today's training, today's session goals, what we're going to talk about. Who exactly is involved in leadership development? Critical leadership skills for this year, for 2025 and beyond, and creating a successful leadership development plan, and winning leadership development strategies. So these are the four main areas. There's also some sub areas within these, but these are the four main areas that we're going to focus on for this particular training session. So firstly, what is leadership development? And so as the description indicates there, it's a process of enhancing the leadership capabilities of individuals, equipping them with the skills, knowledge, and behaviors necessary to lead effectively. So let me discuss this a little bit. So first, when it talks about individuals, notice that the word individuals is plural. So leadership development, it means developing leadership as a whole, meaning individuals, plural, meaning not just one person. That's leader development. So when you're working on one person, or trying to develop yourself or an individual, that's leader development, that leader or a leader. When you are developing or trying to enhance the development of leaders, plural, or the field of leadership, then that's leadership development. So equipping them with the skills, knowledge, and behaviors necessary to lead effectively. So there's also a difference here between, notice, development versus training. So training is, if you think of something mechanical, how to turn a particular wrench on a particular type of screw in a particular type of machinery, right? That is training. Not to say that is a simple process, but that is but it's not a complex process. That's a 1, 2, 3 step process. I have this type of wrench that doesn't change, and this type of bolt that doesn't change, in this type of machinery that doesn't change, right? So that means it's not complex. In leadership, or in the field of leadership, or in an organization, or in any field, the medical field, the military, any field, things are complex because they're unique. They're always changing. There are many factors involved in decision making, right? So that's development. That's not necessarily training, all right? So there's a difference there between development and training. So a couple of key words there to focus on: leadership versus leader, and development versus training. So let me get to the next slide here. There we go. Okay, so a little bit more on the difference. You'll see leader development and leadership development. So here's just a little bit deeper so we can understand the differences here between leader development and leadership development. So first, the description. Leader development and enhancing the skills, knowledge, and abilities of a single leader, as we talked about. Leadership development description: fostering leadership qualities across an organization or team, or even broader, as I mentioned, it could be the field of leadership as a whole. You're going to develop leadership, that field. You're going to add to, or you're going to contribute to that field of leadership. Leader development, the scope, again, individual, and for leadership development, multiple individuals and a shared vision. So that's also critical to understand, is that in developing leadership, meaning plural, multiple, or the field of leadership, there's a shared vision, because uh, you're driving more than one person. You are leading more than one person, or you're leading the field of leadership. When you contribute to the entire field, or when you contribute to multiple individuals, you're basically contributing to that vision that is shared. You're contributing to that theory or that body of knowledge that they understand. So it's basically contributing to that shared vision. Going over to focus, again, for leader development, that's individual growth. For leadership development, that's the culture of leadership. So again, whether you're talking about the field of leadership or specifically an organization, when you are contributing to that organization's development of its leaders, your focus is generally on the culture of leadership, not necessarily the behavioral culture of the organization, but what is it that those leaders are learning, and how are they going to behave based off of what they learned? How are they going to implement what they have learned? So that's what we're referring to when we talk about culture. Are they going to implement uh, theories or lessons that are going to make the organization better, or not, right? That's the culture that we're talking about uh, for the focus of leadership development. So for leader development, the goal is to enhance a single leader's abilities. For leadership development, the goal is to foster leadership qualities among multiple individuals. So here we talk about qualities. We want to foster leadership qualities. So when we contribute to an organization, or we contribute to the body of knowledge of leadership, we want to add to that knowledge. And specifically, we want to add to that knowledge in terms of the qualities. When we say we want to enhance leadership's abilities to think critically, well, what does that mean? Or if we want to enhance people's abilities as leaders to think strategically, well, what does that mean? How do we do it specifically? We do 1, 2, and 3, or we do A, B, and C. This is what we're teaching them. This is what we want them to be able to implement, A, B, and C. So those qualities right there. Getting down to the process for leader development, we talked about training a little bit ago, and leaders can be trained on something. There are certain things that can be trained. I'll use the Army as a specific example. Leaders, just as any and every soldier, need to be experts in handling their weapon, whatever their weapon is. In most cases, an M16 or an M9. That's a specific piece of machinery with specific parts that does a specific thing, right? That's not a complex system. That's a simple system. It's a simple weapon that only has a certain number of parts, and they don't change, and they only do one thing. That's a simple system, but leaders are still trained. Even though leaders, even at high echelons, very senior leaders, focus on the big picture, they're still trained on how to operate a weapon, and they need to know that, right? So that's training versus development. They're also being developed how to think strategically, right? So there's a difference there. Also under process mentoring and coaching, that is on an individual basis. Those can be on a team basis, and sometimes they are, but what we're talking about here is specifically on an individual basis. Over for leadership development, the process, building relationships and fostering teamwork. That of course, pretty self-explanatory for multiple people, right? Building relationships are key. It's often said it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So building relationships is key to get things done, to get the mission accomplished, or whatever it is you need to do. And fostering teamwork. Nothing happens without teamwork, right? Everybody relies on somebody for something, basically anything. So relationships and teamwork are key in leadership development. And a lot of times those are often overlooked. We focus a lot on the attributes. We focus a lot on the qualities. We focus a lot on the strategic thinking, on the decision making, which is all good and necessary. But sometimes the relationships and the teamwork kind of keep falling further and further back and behind and further down the totem pole, and those often get just often fall by the wayside. But we need to remember those need to be key. They need to be up front. And lastly, of course, leader development, the examples, that's one-on-one, just like that mentoring and coaching, and under leadership development, implementing a training program or a development program, just some sort of program, system-wide or organization-wide or enterprise-wide, a program. That's something that is enhancing the development of all leaders in the organization or multiple individuals. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of leader development versus leadership development. Okay, so here comes a participatory part as we go through this slide right here. So first, why is leadership development important? So I've got 3 bullets here, and I'll ask for anybody to just go ahead and join in and chime in and offer any other responses. But we'll go through these. So first, why is it important? It fosters a strong leadership pipeline. Organizations, you would be surprised how many organizations we come across that do not have a leadership pipeline. They don't have a succession plan. They don't have who's next in line or who's next in charge or what is the pecking order, or if the boss isn't here, who do we go to for help, or who do we go to with questions? Who do we go to for answers? What do we do if we get stuck? There is no pipeline. And you would be shocked and amazed at that's it's more often than not that is the case. So it helps in developing a leadership pipeline. Second, it improves employee engagement. If employees know and understand what that pipeline is, or what that chain of command is, they know who to go to for what, and possibly even when. And so there's more engagement. Also, they may want to consider either climbing the ladder, or they can understand the organizational chart better, so they may want to shift laterally, right? So there's just more understanding there, and so they're a little bit more comfortable with communicating, and thus there is more engagement. Third bullet, drives organizational success. So with that second bullet, more engagement, theoretically, there's more organizational success, because you'll have more accomplishment. More engagement will lead to more achievement and more success and more accomplishment. So these are just a few reasons of why leadership development is important and how it plays a role in the big picture. So what I'll do is I'll pause here briefly, and I'll open it up. Can anybody think of why, any other reasons or any other answers, why leadership development is important? And anybody can chime in here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peña. And I was just starting, and right now we're actually going through a lot of changes and reorganizations within the workplace where I'm at. And my workplace and the directorate is aging. It's very old. It's very, seasoned. I will put it like that. And there was a lack of leadership development, right? So a lot of the employees are retiring, and now there's a big gap of personnel that are retiring, and they're leaving, and they're taking all of the knowledge and all of the history with them, and they didn't pass it down to anybody who can continue the work, right? So it's almost like you create, if you don't have that development, it's almost like you create that single point of failure, right? It's like there's one person that has all the knowledge, and so when they get sick or something happens, then there's nobody else that can continue, right? But also it's almost like it sends a message to the employees that there's no potential for growth. There's no potential for promotion, right? And so there's no empowerment and things like that. But yeah, leadership development is definitely important for growth and success of the organization. And right now, we're struggling because there's a lot of knowledge that is retiring where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, all very good points. Yeah, you definitely don't want the organization to fall or fail. A lot of things to slip through the cracks, and so definitely good reasons to avoid that. So yes, thank you very much for sharing. Okay, so we will go to the next slide. Okay, so here's another good reason why it's important, why leadership development is important. You can see this particular slide here. When do managers first get leadership training? And it says on average at age 42, at about 10 years after they begin supervising team members, which is horrible, right? Why at 10 years at age 42? Um, and you see the majority there, of course, it looks like your typical statistical bell curve right there. But so you can see the majority of the percentages are right there towards the middle, from ages 36 to 50, or even a little bit more spread out from 31 to 55, which is still doesn't make it much better because, on the far right side, you have some managers not receiving training until after age 55, right? Which again is just beyond absurd. Even if you wait just a few years, why wait? Why are those managers waiting? Why are those managers' bosses waiting to get them any kind of training? I have the Army's approach. I believe in the Army's approach. Train somebody first, and then see how they do, and see if they qualify to become a leader, a supervisor, a manager, whatever. Because not everybody is going to make it, is going to be a good fit, so to speak. So, but anyway, so this is just another reason, just one reason, based off of organizations out in reality, out in the world, why it's important to receive development, to receive trainings, because you don't want to wait too long. It's said that people don't leave their jobs, they leave bad managers, right? So this is just one point of proof there. This is just one theoretical bullet point of proof that proves that, and there are many. But so it's my belief and the belief of many others that if people were trained first and then evaluated for leadership, managerial, supervisory positions, and then selected, things would be a lot better out there. But right now, this is the system we have. Okay, so some facts about leadership development. One size does not fit all. So this is something to keep in mind, and we could actually talk for days about this one, but we're not going to do that. I'll just throw out a few points. There are many, many, many different types of leadership development, leadership development, however you want to classify it. One size does not fit all. So not every type of development is conducive to every type of learner, and that's something to keep in mind, because different types of developmental programs have different types of focuses. They have different types of specialties or specialty areas. Different. They just do things differently, right? And not everybody learns in the same way. And so that's just a point to keep in mind when considering going to training or going to a development or sending somebody else for a development. Second point, focus on development, not just training. So as I gave already a couple of examples of training versus development, both are necessary. However, though, it's also good to balance both. And it's good to keep that in mind. Both are necessary and they must be balanced, right? So don't overload one side versus the other. The third point, mentorship and coaching are essential. So when we talk about the individual, mentorship and coaching are critical. They are key to an individual's growth. As an individual goes on receiving mentoring and coaching, then you can move into other areas such as team coaching or team mentorship, or you can move into different types of development, action learning, or there's a 1,001 different types of development that you can move to after that. Successful leadership development requires a culture shift. This is huge. This is huge. The leadership of the organization must be bought into it. Nothing is going to happen, nothing's going to change unless it comes from the top down. If people are trying to change it from the bottom up, it's just not going to happen. They're swimming against the current and they're just wasting energy and nothing's going to happen. So leaders must be involved, they must be engaged, they must be driving that particular train. They must be steering that particular ship. They must be advocating for that development if they want a culture shift for the better in their organization. Fifth point, leadership development is an investment, not an expense. And there are decades of research to prove this. I can't begin to tell you how many organizations are out there, even the ones that have hundreds of millions of dollars in profit, who believe that leadership development is an expense, and therefore they're not going to spend one penny on it because it's going to take away from the bottom line. It's going to take away from the profit. And they don't believe that it's an investment. They don't believe it's going to make their people better. It's going to make their culture better, that it's going to drive success, that it's going to make everything better. They don't believe that. And they don't spend one penny on it, even though they have hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. And it's more organizations than you would think. And that's very sad because, again, as I said, there are decades and decades of research and proof that say otherwise, that say it is an investment. It's not an expense. It does make things better. It does make people better. It does it ultimately enhance the bottom line, the culture, the profit, whatever, anything and everything. It does make it better. But some people just haven't accepted that yet. And lastly, leadership development is a lifelong process. Just like as we say in the military, lifelong learning, that's exactly what it is. It's lifelong learning. You can't ever stop. Try to learn something new every day, and in order to get better. Okay. So this is just a little example of a graphic here. This is Warren Bennis's high impact leadership model. So Warren Bennis is one of the fathers of leadership development. He was a leadership professor and ultimately a university president, wrote many articles and some incredible books about leadership. Just incredible thought leader on leadership, one of the best that I've ever come across. But I just wanted to show you this particular model because you can see very clearly and very simply here how an individual grows within the field of leadership. So if you see at the bottom, level 1, that's the highly capable individual, right? Makes productive contributions through talent, knowledge, skills, and good work habits. So when he talks about skills, this is through training, right? That mechanic who can turn that wrench really good and they're really good at it, right? Or that accountant who is really good at doing accounting or whatever have you, whatever profession we're talking about. The capable individual, the highly capable individual. All right. Where organizations and leaders tend to go wrong is they promote the wrong person. That's why people leave the bad manager, because they think, okay, well, since that person is a great mechanic or a great accountant or a great whatever it is, a great fill in the blank, they will automatically make a great manager. And that's where they go wrong, right? That's not always the case, because just because that person is great at what they do doesn't mean they can do all the other things well. Doesn't mean they're a people person. Doesn't mean they're a great planner. Doesn't mean they can manage the finances. Doesn't mean they're a great communicator, and so on and so on and so forth, right? So So you see the progression from level 1 to level 2. Now from getting to level 2, contributing team member contributes individual capabilities to the achievement of the group objectives and works effectively with others in a group setting. So this is where we talk about now somebody is moving to team member. All right, they understand that there are objectives that need to be met. All right, and whether they're my team objectives or my department objectives or the organizational objectives, but I'm a cog in a wheel. I'm contributing to uh, a larger objective. My skill set is enhancing other skill sets, and we're therefore contributing to a larger objective. Then they go to level 3, the competent manager. So hopefully at this point, the right person is picked. The well-balanced person who can think well-balanced is selected, and they organize people and resources toward the effective and efficient pursuit of the predetermined objectives, right? So this is what we need in a competent manager, somebody who can very thoughtfully organize
Recording stopped.
people and resources. Danitza, are we still okay?
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, level 3, the competent manager, somebody who can organize people and resources. And then the person moves to level 4, an effective leader, somebody who catalyzes commitment to and vigorous pursuit of a clear and compelling vision, stimulating higher performance standards. So the level beyond manager, a leader, typically you might have somebody who's like a president or vice president or unit business manager or something like that, somebody who's over a manager. And their job is to catalyze multiple large groups, right, to set a clear and compelling vision. And so that's their job. So that also takes a shift in thinking. All right, a shift in wielding their skill sets in the real world, because they've gone from individual to team member to manager, now to go from manager to leader, they are exercising and utilizing different skill sets once again. So it's somebody who can effectively wield a new and different set of skills. And then they get to level 5, an executive. They're able to build enduring greatness through paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. So this is your CEO, or your chief operating officer, somebody who sits at the top of the pyramid of a large organization, has those VPs under them, and then the managers, and so on and so forth. So they already know how to implement a vision, right? To set a vision and implement that vision now across multiple large areas, right? So when we talk about somebody who can get through these levels, it takes development, right? It takes different levels of mentorship and of coaching and of learning, reading about different levels of leaders and how they do things, different levels of strategic thinking, different levels of accomplishment, right? So, your first level supervisor of 2 or 3 people is going to think differently than the CEO of Disney, who manages tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people. So that's the different levels of thinking that a leader has to develop themselves through when they are going through all of this development. And that's kind of the picture that this graphic helps illustrate here. So real quick before we move on, any questions so far about this graphic or anything we've touched on before we jump to the next slide?
Yes, Dr. Pena, I'm Zanita Galino, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I work in veteran service organization space as well. I'm curious, in the body of research, is there a certain time frame, if everything is done, best practice, where people can move through this process, or is it really very individualistic? Because while I recognize we have to be individualistic in the way we mentor and people grow, but what in the most ideal can people move up and through these levels in a like an ideal time frame, or is it not a model that's set up for that type of that type of programming?
Right. Yeah. Very good question. Yeah. So all of the research that I have come across indicates there is not a specified time frame. It is up to the individual. It's very much up to the individual because everybody's on their own time, so to speak, in their own growth and learning process. Everybody learns and grows at their own pace, so to speak. So it's when they feel they have I don't want to say mastered a particular level, but when they've gotten comfortable at a particular level and they can effectively perform at that level, then they're ready to take on more, right? And it's not only up to the individual, but it's also up to the whoever's supervising the individual, that individual's bosses within the organization, to be able to recognize that as well, to be able to recognize, okay, nobody's perfect. This person right here isn't the greatest leader ever, but they are functioning well. They are performing well. They have they're performing well in their, not only in their duties but in their leadership abilities, and therefore they are ready to now take on more, whatever time frame that is. It could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, could be 5 years. So everybody is pretty much at a different at their own pace, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. Great question. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. So who's involved in leadership development? So we've pretty much touched on most of these already, but of course you have the learner, the employee, or whatever you want to call that person, the person who's receiving the development. But you also have mentors, you have coaches. HR professionals should be involved in this as well, in terms of assisting leaders in the development of the program. HR professionals are not 100% responsible for this. Like I said, these types of programs or development should be from the top down, but it is within the HR realm to assist the senior leaders in developing the program or in implementing the program, or which program are we going to do and why, and how is it the best fit. What are going to be the checks and balances? How are we going to select the participants and the coaches and the mentors and so on and so forth, right? And getting all of those questions worked out. It's up to HR to help the senior leaders do that. And as it says right there, it's up to the senior leaders to drive that train. And lastly, of course, learning and development specialists. An organization, a large organization, generally has some of those within the HR department. If an organization doesn't have a learning and development specialist specifically, they can always contract one to assist with that, and they can assist the HR and the senior leaders in doing that. And so, but that's something to keep in mind. This isn't dependent on one person or two people or three people. It's not only up to the mentee and the mentor, and that's it. No. This is a community here. This is a community project, as one of my old math teachers used to say. Okay, so examples of leadership development self-assessments. Now, this one is I threw this one in here because this is really important. And again, I could talk for days about this one, but I'm not going to do that. I'll hopefully just talk about 2 minutes on this one. But these are just some examples of some self-assessments here. And some of you have probably heard about most of these. And there are many, many more. There are actually dozens of self-assessments. And I encourage anybody out there to start with these and continue on. I would encourage you to take some of these assessments, because you don't know what you don't know. And it's really interesting. It's so eye-opening to find out what kind of a person you are, that you don't even know what kind of a person you are until you take one of these assessments. You know what your likes are and what your dislikes are, or you think you know what you're good at and what you're not good at. But these personalities, some of them are personality assessments, but some of them are leadership development assessments. They are very, very good at basically telling you, giving you an insight as to sort of, what's in the back of your mind or what's deep down inside, what you really haven't thought of. And when you take these assessments, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. All right. There just is what is. You just answer the way you answer, truthfully, and it just helps you uncover just sort of what you really think, what you didn't realize you thought, so and it helps you because you really get to understand your I don't want to say your weaknesses, but it helps you understand why certain things are, for example, um why your battery gets drained so quickly doing certain tasks but not other tasks. Well, that's because I'm this type of a personality versus this type of personality, right? Or certain things like that. Or I'm better at communicating this way and not that way. And so, I can work on this one, or I can focus on that one, or whatever it is, whether it be communication or whether it be your energy level. It just provides you so much insight into so many different areas of your life and of your being. So I encourage everybody out there to take some of these self-assessments, especially if you're a leader, or especially if you're a junior leader and you want to be a senior leader. These are some really, really, really helpful um, tools, and I encourage you to take them often, probably at least once a year. I wish I had these when I was a junior leader. I wasn't exposed to these until I was out of the Army, after I had retired. And I mean, I still did fine in the Army, but I just wish I had had this knowledge, this information, when I was a junior leader. And so enough about that one. I'll leave that at that. Okay. So some critical leadership skills for 2025 and beyond. Okay, so these apply to not only individuals, but also, again, plural, individuals as, not individuals, but leadership as a whole, leaders as a whole, where the field of leadership is, I don't want to say lacking, but where it's going in terms of what is needed, what the research and what organizations say is needed now and in the foreseeable future. So clear communication and feedback that's getting lost for different reasons, right? Not only because of technology, it was because of COVID a few years ago, and now, the work environment has shifted, and so communication and feedback is not as good as it was. And so that needs to be better. Conflict resolution, mostly for the same reasons. Emotional intelligence, mostly because there's a lot of people who just don't know what that is or what that looks like, or how to navigate it, how to manage it, how to work with it, how to use it as a tool. So understanding emotional intelligence. Delegation, not because people don't know what that is, but because it's getting harder with technology. It's getting harder with um, virtual work, with people working virtually, believe it or not. So delegation could just be clearer in the future. Strategic thinking. So a lot of the strategic thinking is kind of getting lost at the mid and lower levels of organizations now. They're because of virtual work, workers are just kind of leaving that to the most senior levels of organizations, and it's not always only supposed to be left there. It can be at other levels as well. Time management, because we're focused a lot nowadays on the work-life balance, which is good. However, though, there's sometimes it could be a little off balance, right? And so just managing the life and managing time, in order to keep everything balanced. Relationship building, of course, because again, more is going virtual, so that means less is in person, and so in some cases relationships may suffer. Innovation, again, kind of sort of along the same lines of delegation and strategic thinking, is that the mid and lower levels are just trying to plug away at their computers and do what they need to do and get the jobs done. And so they're not really innovating as much. They're leaving that to just the innovators, right? Just the engineers or just the creative people or just the whoever is in charge of innovation, and it's not me, right? So in some cases, the innovation is suffering. Adaptability and flexibility, that's everybody, especially leaders. Leaders need to teach their subordinates how to be adaptable and flexible for a multitude of reasons. We don't even need to get into that one. It's for any and every reason. Developing a positive team culture. It's not that people are teaching a negative team culture. It's just that it's harder and harder to teach a positive team culture when people are more and more disconnected, again, because of working virtually or going into the office less or whatever have you. So it's just got to keep that in the forefront. Managing change, again, now, how do you do that if everybody's virtual, right? I mean, so in some ways you can do it. In some ways it's easy. In some ways it's always changing, right? So it's not so hard, not so bad, but it's still a challenge. Virtual leadership, I've been talking a lot about that one. Things are virtual. How do we lead? We've actually helped a lot of clients with that. We can help you. That one takes several days, but we can help you with that. But that is different from leading in person. Collaboration, again, everybody's disconnected. How do you collaborate? So that takes a little bit of work. And then effective people performance management. So again, you're more disconnected, everybody's disconnected, or everybody's separated geographically. How do you effectively manage their performance, right? You don't see them in person. So again, some people have been doing this for a long time, and some people can do it very easily. Others, it's going to take some work, right? So this is just a glimpse of what is needed for 2025 and beyond. Okay, so creating a successful leadership development plan. What is needed? All right. So if we're talking about an individual, assess where you are professionally, right? Where you want to go. Set an attainable goal. Is it attainable? You got to make sure it's attainable, or else you're just setting yourself up for failure. Engage in leadership training, not only in training, but in development. Seek it out. Be proactive. Engage in development. Interact with your network. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So not only engaging in leadership development, but engaging with your network. And then always, always, always honing your skills. Always be working on something, something that is of a professional nature. So this is for not only the individual, but for individuals, plural, for multiple people. This can go for everybody. This can apply to everyone. As a plan, as a development plan for whether an individual or for the masses. This could be, and again, this is only the beginning, right? This is not the end all be all to get to the very top of the ladder you want to climb. This is just the start. This is just a plan. Of course, as you start to execute this plan, you'll start to get new action steps that you want to take, right? And that's the big part of it right there, is just getting started and then keep going. And getting towards the end here, just want to talk about the process for designing and developing impactful leadership development programs. So now we're talking about the big programs for a large organization, not so much the individual now, but for multiple individuals. What we want to do, we want to talk about alignment. All right. So what does the organization need? Not only what do the individuals need, we've already talked about that, but what does the organization need from the individuals? What's the one direction we need all the individuals to pull in at the same time? What's that direction? What is that goal? What is that objective? And how do we develop the leaders for that? Number two, the goals. How will performance change? Okay, so what are the goals? If we're trying to get from A to Z, okay, what is it that's going to change? And how do we affect that change? Through development. Third is assessment. Where are you now and where are you going, and how are we going to assess that? How are we going to know that we got there, or that we're going in the right direction? How are we going to assess? And that doesn't have to necessarily mean we test everybody, right? Everybody has to take tests every month or every week or whatever, but you know, it could be informal assessments, but how are we going to gauge it? Just how are we going to how are we going to know? Number four, development. What kind of learning experiences will work for you? Okay, and for you, meaning for your organization, for everyone in your organization. And notice that it says learning experiences. It doesn't say PowerPoint training, right? It doesn't say PowerPoint slides, right? It doesn't say, you know, someone standing in the front giving PowerPoint slides. It says a learning experience. That's what's key here. And again, this has to be driven from the top down. So when you think about, when you go back to number one and number two, what is needed and what is going to change in the performance, that's where you develop it right there in number four, the learning experience. What is the learning experience that's going to be that's going to affect that change? Number five, how are you going to execute involvement? How can senior leaders support the learners? So senior leaders can't just say, I want this to happen, or I support this, or we're going to do this. No, they have to be involved, right? They have to be, again, they have to be flying that plane. They have to be steering that ship. They have to be very involved. Now, they don't have to be micromanaging, but they need to be, you know, getting periodic briefings saying, you know, leader, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. We'll see you there, right? And the leader needs to be there. Implementation, how will you integrate the learning experience? Again, so not only is it a learning experience, not only are they going to learn, but the learners are not going to integrate it into their culture or into their workplace or into their work or into their relationships or into everything that they do. Because if you don't integrate it, all you did was waste time and money, right? Yes, they had a learning experience and they learned something, but you don't actually affect change unless they integrate it into their behavior and into the organization, and then things can change. Feedback and evaluation. How are learners performing, right? So again, and you can't just leave it there. Okay, we learned something and then we managed to integrate it and then that's it. And we all just wipe our hands and walk away. No, no, no. Again, that's one of the worst things you can do. You have to evaluate that. Yes, it worked. Okay, but can we still get better? Can we make it better? Can we do better? Can we make it more efficient? How are our folks doing? Can we still help them? Can we help them get better? You know, so it's that constant make it better. That's how you affect change. Number 8, measuring impact. How effective was the program? Then you have to look at that. Okay, now that we did all this, did we get to the goal we wanted to get to? Was it effective? Did it work? Yes or no? And if not, then okay, what do we need to do differently? And then, of course, number 9, what's next? Creating a culture of learning. So great, going back to that, the what's next is, okay, we're going to keep this culture of learning, right? We're going to create it and keep it. We want people to keep learning so that they keep making things better. Again, going back to development is an investment, not an expense. If you keep on investing, what happens to your nest egg? It just keeps on growing, right? That's the same thing with learning and the same thing with culture. So if you stop contributing to that investment, it's not going to grow. It's really not going to grow as much as if you continued to contribute to that investment. So that's what senior leaders need to understand and need to do. Okay, and I think this might be one of our last slides here, just winning leadership development strategies. This is just strategies to help you all, whether you're whatever level of leader you are, but to help you execute what you want to do for not only getting leaders engaged and keeping them engaged, but keeping your organization successful is increase employee engagement. We already talked about all the reasons to do that, right? Succession planning, that was talked about right up front, why succession planning is important. Mentorship programs, we talked about that, not only about on the individual level, but perhaps on the team level as well. Those are critical, and no matter what level of leader you are, even senior leaders need mentors. Cross-functional projects. Not only does that expose the employees to different positions and different skill sets, but also exposes them to different leaders. And so they learn from different people. Executive coaching, again, that's often on the one-on-one, but it can be in groups. Leadership self-assessments, again, I encourage those very much, highly. I encourage those for all levels of leaders. I encourage you to take multiple assessments. You'll learn so much that you didn't even know was deep down inside you. Emotional intelligence, talked about that a little bit, why that's important. Leaders often don't have any or don't know what it is, don't know how to use it, don't know how to work it, don't know how to manage it, and it's very, very important in leadership. Human-centric leadership. This is something that is somewhat relatively new when you talk about the field of leadership, but because leadership has been around for a very long time, but human-centric leadership is focusing on the behind-the-scenes human reasons, the human needs, and how you wrap those in, and how you can better get buy-in from not only the followers, but from the leaders as well, by tying it all together. Not only what does the organization need and what do we need to do and what objectives do we need to accomplish, but how do we tie those into our human needs? And if we're accomplishing all those goals at the same time, and hitting all of those marks in one action step, well, then we all succeed even more. We're even more successful. Digital and technological literacy, that's on there because most leaders are older than the followers, right? So therefore, they're not as tech savvy, not as digital savvy as the followers, because the followers are younger, right? So older leaders do need to get on that bandwagon and get tech savvy. Ethical and transparent leadership. That is not always the case out there. In some cases it is, in a lot of cases it's not. Leaders, sadly, are not always ethical and transparent. Again, the research has proven for decades that the more ethical and transparent leaders are, the more they will be followed. So leaders need to be ethical and transparent. Leadership workshops, just like any other development, those are very beneficial. Those are an investment. And whoops, oh, executive coaching's on there twice. My mistake. But so these are just some strategies for leaders. Okay, and we have come to the end. And so a quick question here for reflection and growth, and anybody can respond here as we've come to the end. But the question for reflection and growth is, how would you implement what you have learned today? And so I'll just open that up to anyone who wants to respond, and go ahead and just kind of feel free to share.
Yeah, and I thank you, Lionel. I do want to welcome. We had 3 new guests that have joined during the presentation. So we have Brooke, we have Paul and Mario that have joined us. And I just want to, open the floor for them to see if they have any comments, or they want to share anything on their experience, or, on their leadership that they may have to share with the rest of the group.
Hey, this is Brooke. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first, what I would do to implement what I learned, I think it's a good idea to keep in mind what you were saying about when you want to do a change, and just how to get there. It's one thing to be like, okay, this is what's coming down. I'm in recruiting right now, so there's stuff changing all the time. But, like you said, getting that buy-in and everything like that. But another question I kind of had is, in your experience with being a leader in the military and in the civilian world, what is the major differences, either good, bad, or ugly, or all of it, that you've seen, for better or for worse?
Oh gosh, oh, that could be a really long answer. That one could take days, but it might not be what you expect, because I've seen some military organizations that have a lot of problems, and I've seen some civilian organizations that actually work much more efficiently than a lot of military units that I've seen. So, I, it might seem kind of cliche, but it all goes back to the leaders. It all goes back to the standards that the leaders implement and expect from the lead. It goes back to their expectations. It goes back to the investment of development in their folks. So um, that's probably the shortest answer, but um, again, an organization is people, right? And so it's all in what the people do with the skills they have and what they're given. And and what drives all that is the vision from the top, and how well the the command team, so to speak, as we call it in the military, how well they are on the same page. How cohesive are they? How well do they communicate? Are they on the same page, or do they have the same values? Do they have the same objectives, the same goals? Do they have the same expectations? Do they expect the same quality of work from the lead? All of that. So it really does come from the leaders of organizations. Like I said, I've seen some military units that were in really, really bad shape, and I've seen some civilian organizations that were just, blew me away. Much better than some high performing military organizations I've seen. So I just say it all goes back to the people and the leaders and the standards that they set forth and what they expect.
Thank you for that. And then, kind of along with that, and maybe you touched on this in the beginning, I just came in a little late, but how important would you say it is in terms of like being a leader and the likability? Like, I would assume, it's important to have your peers liking you, but I would imagine there's some diminishing returns with that, because if they like you a little too much, maybe it's going to be a little bit too much of a casual relationship. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so that goes back to the emotional intelligence, right? And you've got to be able to read the room to a certain extent. I went to a training one time where I heard the leader say, "You can be friendly, but don't be their friend," right? And that stuck with me for a lot of my military career. But I mean, you do have to be likable to a certain extent, right? And don't get me wrong. I mean, there have been many successful leaders in history who were not likable, right? But they were successful because they could just get things done, whether through efficiency, whether through effectiveness, whether through fear, whether through whatever, right? Different reasons. However, though, in today's day and age, um, I think it's just important to be yourself. It's important to be genuine. It's important to be trustworthy. It's important to be honorable. It's important to be truthful. Uh, you've probably often heard it said that I don't like the person, but I can trust him, right? Or I don't agree with him, but I can trust him, or whatever the case. I don't blank, but I can trust the person. So I think it goes back to first of all, trust. Do they trust you as a leader? Do they trust that you are always going to make the decision that's best for the organization? Right, or the people in the organization. And then secondly, you don't waver from that. But also, you may not always be likable, but they can work with you and they can follow you. I mean, yes, we would all like to have the greatest boss, right? The most likable boss. But we know that's not reality. That's not the way of the world. Not every boss is the most likable boss, right? There's a whole spectrum of people out there. Everybody's different. And that's also key to understanding, is that everybody is different, and that's okay. That's how it is. That's the universe. That's the way of the world. And so the main points are: can I trust that person? Are they truthful? Are they genuine? I may not agree with them, I may not like them, but I know that they're doing what's best for the organization. I know that they're competent, and they're doing what's best for the organization, and I can agree with that. So I'm good, right? So you want them to be able to at least think in that way, or at least have that feeling for the leader. And you can build off of a relationship like that.
Thank you.
I see that Pete has a question.
Yeah, first, thanks a lot for the invite to this and putting this on. This is, definitely a topic that I think we don't have these kind of conversations about enough, and it's great to hear some of the questions and the perspectives that are here. And when I think of why this stuff is so important, is to improve our organization and its performance, right? And some of the things that I think go into that is how we make decisions, the systems in which we operate on these decisions, like what's kind of guiding us, and some of that is brought up in our organizations. Like in the military, you start at a junior rank and you grow through that, and the way you behave, think, and act evolve over time. And I think in the realms of like leader development and organizational behavior, a lot of it is tied to the human itself. And I thought so I really appreciated seeing that in your slides. And the question that was asked about the likability is a great question, because I think likability, for me, I think of that from a symptom. What are the symptoms of being likable? And I think somebody else mentioned in the chat, it comes down like trust. So if I can focus more on the things that I think make me likable, like, all right, I'm trustworthy, people feel that they can come to me with problems. I try to be transparent, fostering open communication about things. You talked about culture and that positive work environment, and trying to motivate people to, like, yeah, I might be the leader, but I'm not the person that can solve all these problems. I don't have the expertise and experiences that everybody else has. And, trying to build that teamwork of, these hot groups that just come together they're so motivated. They're so inspired by the mission and the purpose of the organization. And I think when you get all those things right, and you kind of, as a leader, you give that control to those groups to do this, I think things that can come out of that are comments like likable, like, hey, I really liked working for that person. I really enjoyed being in that organization, on that team. And there was this special secret sauce that, you can't quite put a name on it. And I think that comes out of these assessments. That's why all these different assessments are so powerful. And you do them over and over again with your team, and you start to learn these little things about each other, but then also about yourself and how those things interact with each other. Like, if I think the MBTI is a great intro. I think it often gets dismissed as a really simple tool, and I think the simple tools are so powerful. If you're an introvert and you're in a room full of extroverts, all right, you're going to have to be exhausted, because you're going to have to extrovert today. And when they see you, and if you can go into that group, and if Dr. Pena is an extrovert and I'm an introvert, and I go to him, I'm like, hey, man, this is a tough audience. I'm a big introvert. It's always a challenge for me to extrovert with these groups, and it seems so natural for you. Like, that's that building of trust. And then he can support me, and then I can support him in other areas. Like, yeah, that's a great question. I really need to think about that. And that builds that culture. And so within a leader development program, um, how do you capture those things? It takes time, and it's so important. And that's why I think this forum is so great, because I think we often this stuff gets thrown in that bucket of soft skills, and they don't understand how vital this is to organizational performance and success. So, Dr. Pena, thanks for doing this, and for everybody here, thanks for putting this on.
Yeah, well, great comments. Thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of points there supporting the the questions that were asked and different viewpoints there that are definitely very insightful. So thank you for your comments there. Danitza, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us even, as even a little bit late. The conversations and the feedback received was very insightful. Yeah, the likability, right? That was one that we all kind of struggle with. Do we want to be liked, or do we want them to follow us into battle, right? And military background is like, I do not like that guy, but I will follow him anywhere, or her anywhere, right? And that's, at the end of the day, it goes with the trust. And I think that's something that is earned, not given. And I like what you said, Dr. Pena, when you said it's like you can be friendly, but not their friend. Sometimes friendliness eventually turns into friendship, right? But that's when the trust comes in. So great presentation today. Again, this is something that we're not seeing often, leadership development, and unless you are sent to a course or a school or something like that. So very valuable. Again, thanks to El Puente and Bridgify Institute for this. We're really enjoying the partnership. Please stay tuned, follow El Puente and Bridgify, and follow us on LinkedIn. And this will be available on YouTube and on LinkedIn if you want to rewatch it from the beginning. Again, connect with us. And thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks.